Hi, Becca Ann here. Thanks for stopping by my channel. I have a question for you. Do you end up with lots of scraps from projects? Well, I had a bunch of these scraps left over from projects I was working on at my retreat, and I was working in this paper pad called "'Tis the Season" by Stampin' Up, and I developed bunches of scraps, you guys. Well, in the meantime, I got asked to be a guest designer on Heart's Quest Challenge blog, Heart's Quest Fantasy Challenge blog, and their focus this week, or for this month, was elves. And so she asked me to, if I could, make an elf card. So this is the card that I created, and I used all scraps. Isn't he cute? This busy little elf. He was actually very easy to make. Now, I used an SVG file for him from Cricut. And you're thinking, well, Beck, I don't have a Cricut, or I don't have that. It was a free file. I don't have access to Cricut files either. I'm a cartridge person. That's how old my Cricut is. But just in case you do use your Cricut that way, the SVG file was from Roberta Pini, P-I-N-I, and it only cuts out the face. Everything else I made from these scraps. And I thought I'd show you how to do that today because it's very easy. I figured we could come up with our own little elfie face. So these were the parts that I used that consisted of the elf's face. There were these little bitty eyes. I did use the little dots. But you can see that's all that the elf face entailed. So I would say we could recreate something very similar without using that face for the elf. I know we can do it. So what I figured we'll do is I will put this together and show you how I did it. So stay tuned. So for you to be able to construct this cutie patootie card, to get the layout, start with a mat that's 4 by 5 1/4. And then a strip of whatever design paper you like. This strip is going to be 2 by 5 1/4, and you're going to glue that on. That side's pretty too. I like double-sided paper just for that reason, because you get two beautiful sides, and then you got to decide. Okay, and then you're going to have a piece of cardstock, and this cardstock should be 1 1/2 by 5 1/4, and that's going to be the little table, and that's going to go at the bottom like that. And then you're going to have a piece of design paper that you want to be the present, and this should measure 1 3/4 by 2 1/2. And what I did for this is I glue the bottom, but up at the top I put some dimensionals. So let me get some dimensionals and put those up at the top. I just took my present and tilted it to the side, just like this, with the corner at the bottom. Okay, put a little glue on it so I don't forget to do that. I often like to have something glued at the bottom but raised at the top more, so he's going to be just about there. Alright, now for the arms, this design paper for the arms is 5/8 by 3/4, these little arms. And you can see that I'm gluing them just like this down. that's how they're going to get glued. Alright, and then I'm going to make some little mittens for his hands, and I'm going to use just some design paper to make a bow. Alright, I'm going to do that, and I'll put that on there and show you where we're at. Now, if you did not have bows, now these bows are mini bows from My Creative Time. Let me grab those real quick for you. The My Bows by My Creative Time, the mini bows. And I used, it looks like I used this one. So I want to get the little mittens, and I'll show you the die I used for that too. So for my little mittens that I put on there, I inked around with some tea dye distress ink just to give them so that they show up a little bit. And you know, a little elf that's been working really hard might not have pristine white mittens. But that came from the mittens from the snowman accessory dies from Impression Obsession. I think those looked really cute. So I don't want to glue that down until I get my little bow. And my bow is the mini, like I said, the mini bow dies from My Creative Time. I just cut a strip. It's probably about 5/8. It was bigger than a 1/4 strip, but I cut it the length of my box, and we're going to put it down before I adhere my little arms down, because I want to know exactly where I put this bow. And these were just some scraps of paper. This paper is not part of that pack. It's a different Stampin' Up! Christmas pack that I have, but I just had some little strips. And I am, before I do that, I want to put a little dot of glue right in the middle. But I put some pop dots behind there so this sticks up. And then I did the same thing with the bow. And that way it gives some dimension. Like that. And now I can decide how close I want that little arm to be. See? That way you see it, and that he's actually fixing the little, and then there is everything you can do without that elf face. So I measured this circle for our little elf face, and it's not a perfect round circle, but it was about 1.5 inches. The long ways was 1.5 inches, and the other way was 1.25 inches. So I had a circle punch that is 1 3/8, and I think that's going to work just fine for our card. I think it can be perfectly round. There's no rules, right? So what I need to do now is make the little collar, and I had a white scrap. I took my little round face and traced it, and now I'm just going to draw my own little scallops, and it can be any way I want it to be. And what's great is I can erase. Now, yeah, it's making a mark back, but that's okay because I'm gonna put a little tea dye on it anyway, I think. Okay, I cut that out. Now I want you to see I didn't have to worry at all because I'm just using the other side of what I cut out. All right? And I think it's going to be just fine. Now, let's get our little arms. I made this little piece for the neck from a scrap. It's just a little piece that I can have something for a neck. And I'm going to glue that together here. And then we'll have that right over it. And that will give us an idea of shoulders, just like that. Okay? So I've got that on. I don't have this arm over as far as my other one, but I still think it looks cute. And I did trim the sides off a little bit because I wanted it to be like at least one shoulder was showing. So now we got to work on the hair. And I took this scrap of brown paper, and if we look at this one, they went around the circle. So that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to draw around this circle. And I don't want the hair as wispy. I think I kind of would like it curly. So we're going to go like this. Now I have to cut this out, so it might look wispy in the end. I want you to see how rough it is. I just cut around my little doodle. Now, I do think the other one is a little cuter, but once we get it together, I don't think it's going to matter. We're going to put that on there. He's just got a different hairstyle than the other one, right? See how it's coming together? Now, we've got to make the hat, and I want there to be no cheats. I am not tracing any of the SVG file. We are not tracing this hat. No, no, no. I'm going to freehand it because I've got the idea of how big I want it based on the little head here. All right. So I've just got to decide what paper. I might go with a scrap of the paper that we have. And I might make a little template. We'll see. I thought I would show you. I had this little piece of gingham, and it's not even as big as this piece. But I just decided I was going to use it because it pretty much is a little longer than the head, which is what we want. And then I'm going to give it just a little bit of a curve. Just a little curve to it, and then cut it out, and then ink around it, and then I got to make the little bit of fluff, fur fluff around it, and that'll cover up any imperfection. And of course I'm going to hit it with some ink, some vintage photo ink. All right, I just freehand, and they don't have to be perfect, you guys, because it's all about giving the illusion, right? I think that's going to be just fine. Let's see. Oh, yes, it is. I might give it a little bit more of a curve, but I'm going to wait until I get my little muff of white made. And I think it's going to be cute. I'm going to put the rest of it together. Whoops. All right, it's all finished. What do you think? I'm really pleased with it. Now for that, the fur on the hat, I just used a piece of my scraps that are my cutoff strip and just lined it up and rounded the corners a little bit and did do a little rounding just to give it a little bit of a different look, so it didn't look exactly straight across. And then I took my vintage photo, or my tea dye, and went around that. The Sentiment Joy is in the Air was a strip that I cut off, and that comes from the large Mr. Snowman from my creative time. And I wanted to say that this paper has a texture to it, but I don't think it takes away at all. The little ears on both of them, I cut them myself. So I know this one is super cute. But if you don't have a die, you can still create a card just like this with your scraps. So I hope you enjoyed seeing how this little elf came together. And until next time, I hope you are having a great crafty day, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.